stories of Charlotte in April of 1984.
I got to see Charlotte grow up as a banking hub. I got to see Charlotte grow up as it relates to professional sports.
His work includes coverage of Hurricane Hugo, the Ray Carruth trial, and civil rights documentaries.
And the Emmy goes to Orangeburg 50 years later.
He took us up close and personal, opening up about his battle with colon cancer.
When you get that news that you have cancer, how does that shift your mindset and your outlook on life?
I've said before, it's not necessarily a reality check, it's a mortality check.
And now his legacy lives on.
Steve Crump, WBTV on your side, Hamlet.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. Steve Crump was on your side for nearly 40 years. You can go anywhere in the Carolinas, in the country for that matter, and find someone who knew him. Today, our dear friend lost his 5-year battle with colon cancer. He's survived by the love of his life, Kathy. He was a devoted and passionate journalist here in Charlotte. He told stories that matter to you, and tonight, we're going to tell his.
We're outside of Bank of America Stadium. We're in Charleston, South Carolina. For now, we're on Capitol Hill. Steve Crump.
It's hard to imagine anyone more cut out to hold a microphone to tell a story than Steve Crump.
WBTV on your side.
In almost 40 years here at WBTV, he covered the routine and the monumental, all with the same knack for context, calm, and curiosity. He was there for scandals like PTL, for celebrations.
Thank you.
When Charlotte became an NFL city. He also helped us through dark days.
There is just such a sense of eeriness.
9/11, the Hamlet fire, the crash of Flight 1016, the Charleston Church massacre.
Flowers and trinkets serve as tributes and ease the pain of those feeling a sense of loss.
But what he did best was bring light to injustice, to stories and causes that could be easily ignored or forgotten to time.
And 11 days later, on January 31st, all hell broke loose at McCrory's, less than 30 miles south of Charlotte, in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
He reminded us of those who blazed trails: Harvey Gantt, Rock Hill's Friendship 9, the Greensboro 4.
The names of the dead and injured are firmly etched into the landscape of this college. And what happened here at South Carolina State University in some circles has been forgotten, discounted, and pushed to the side.
He took us back to Orangeburg 50 years after the massacre of 3 black student protesters. His documentaries, winners of more awards than you can count, serve as a living history, lessons to remember. But even though he had long ago put down roots here in Charlotte, in the Carolinas, the call of home, Kentucky, was always ringing. Steve uncovering untold stories of Louisville's legends, Muhammad Ali, Churchill Downs. It's no surprise his last story on our air was about retired racehorses and second chances.
And some of the fortunate 4-legged survivors of this high-stakes game are now cared for by the South Carolina Department of Corrections.
Steve worked his craft to the end, and we are all better for it.
Throughout his storied career, Steve has been honored and awarded. His work as a journalist has taken him all over the country and all over the world. Earlier this year, Steve's face was encapsulated in a portrait at the Harvey Gantt Center in Uptown. It was part of a local component of the Smithsonian Institution traveling exhibition called Service, Men of Change. He worked to document the lives of some of the men featured in the exhibit. And in a full-circle moment, he was recognized as a force of change here in Charlotte.
Thank you. I remain grateful. I've learned a lot by going through this exhibit, and I hope that people learn a lot from these stories, including my story.
Storytellers, you see it there above his portrait. Joining us now is our Dedrick Russell. We've heard former Charlotte Mayor Harvey Gantt's name mentioned multiple times today. Tell us more about that relationship.
Well, Jamie, I'm glad you asked that question. The funny thing is that Harvey B. Gantt says that at first he didn't pay attention to Steve Crump, but that quickly changed. Listen to how that happened.
But you started to notice Steve as we moved through the years. He became a kind of ubiquitous reporter who was everywhere where there was something related to history. You didn't find Steve covering just the normal stories about an ambulance accident or someone having experiencing a robbery or the normal stuff you see on the 6 o'clock news. Steve seemed to always be interested in history, you know, and so he would bug me for details of the Clemson experience.
Yeah, and that Clemson experience is referencing Harvey Gantt was the first black student admitted to Clemson University, and that intrigued Steve. He wanted to know more about that and tell that story. As you heard, Steve gravitated to history. Currently, Steve was working on a project about Gantt's profession. You know, Gantt is an architect and designed several African-American churches in Charlotte. That was also a story Steve wanted to tell and was bugging Harvey Gantt about, right? So when we caught up with Gantt today, we asked if there was anything he would say to Steve on this day.
Man, you've done a great job. You have made a real impression on a whole lot of people in lots of different stations in life. You've done a good job. You've been a great journalist. You've told a great story.
Yeah, and what a great story our friend and colleague told these past 5 years. And Harvey Gantt, he says that, you know, not only was Steve always after a story, but he was genuine. Absolutely. And people could say, could feel that him being genuine. And one thing he said that Steve always loved to tell you the part that you didn't expect you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly right.
He always wanted to say, hey, did you know this?
Right.
Now I know.
And I talked to him many, many times about this, right? That I think he felt it was part of his purpose in life was to make sure these stories stayed alive. A new generation was going to be able to hear them.
Exactly, and now that generation will be able to see his work at the University of South Carolina, where his work will live on. And Harvey Gantt was saying that it would be nice if all of the history and the documentaries that Steve did, that they would be replayed in schools, in classrooms, so people can get that history head on from Steve Crump.
I want to give you a moment, Eddie, too, to just talk about Steve as a friend, as a mentor to you when you came here about 20 years ago.
20 years. He embraced me, and you know, he was there when I needed. When I needed to find contacts. Yeah. He did not hold his Rolodex. No. He shared. He said that, hey, and you know, they call me Daddy here, and they say, Daddy, talk to this person, talk to this person. And so, you know, you felt that, truly our mantra is on your side. Steve Crump was on our side, and he was on my side. And I'm a better journalist, I'm a better person, all because of Steve Crump.
No matter who you were, where you came from, he took you under his wing.
Absolutely.
And he made sure you were taken care of here.
Yeah, my big brother.
Absolutely. Daddy, I appreciate you stopping by tonight. WBTV family is sharing our memories and stories of Steve tonight.
Thank you, Steve, for the standard that you've set, for the legacy that you've shared, and for the love that you've poured into so many people.
God certainly blessed us with a gem of a man in Steve Crump.